she didn't look anything like that at all. You can imagine her without the mast, the line work, the woodwork, all of that was gone. Even the clipper bow, that pointy end with the car figurine that we're looking at, that was across the Atlantic Ocean. And we got her back here and spent another $8 million to restore her to the condition that you see her in right now, which is her original 1877 condition. Now today, she's actually going sailing to Marlboro. We only sail her just a few weeks out of the whole year. We have around 130 people that maintain the Elissa throughout the year. Those are all for their reward. We actually reward them by teaching them how to sail the Elissa, and then they get to be the crew that take her out, which actually makes her the third oldest actively sailing ship anywhere on the planet. Out of here, we got a lot of water to cover, and believe it or not, an hour goes by very quickly. So we're going to keep on. Down to the dark brown trimming on the left side of our boat. Those are two of the total of 3 cruise ship terminals that we have at the moment. We don't have any cruise ships in today, but we do get 5 cruise ship companies that come to our waterways. We get Carnival, Royal Caribbean, Norwegian, Princess. Ships from our port, just different parts of Mexico and the Caribbean on a 5 to even a 10-day long cruise. Now a little bit further up ahead, you'll see a triangular shaped can building. Our building is full of fresh fertilizer. Texas is known for their cattle, and cattle produce a byproduct that we order for it. So if we get too much closer to that building, it starts smelling like it did whenever it come out of the cow. So we're not going to go down that way too much further. The Tampico incident, and during the World War I time frame, they launched an aircraft off of the deck of that boat right there. That was one of the very first times that had ever been done successfully. Once they figured out that was possible, they decided to build aircraft carriers for World War II. As you walk around, just in case. They're mammals, which means a few things. That means that they have lungs, just like you and I. They have to come up and take a breath for about every 6 minutes or so. It also means that they have hair, just like you and I. They give live birth. The mama dolphin will have a pregnancy of around 12 months. And then they'll have a little baby dolphin called a calf. And the calf drinks milk somehow. Not sure how that works. Up ahead to the right, the fins are still coming up. Now they are wild. I mentioned that. They're protected. They're protected by the Marine Mammal Protection Act. It's the same act that protects the manatees down in Florida. That act makes it a federal offense to interfere with their normal behavior, and that includes a lot of stuff. You can't feed them, you can't try to draw them to the boat on sight or sound, you can't try to jump in the water and swim with them. That is a federal offense, punishable by a $10,000 fine and 5 years in a federal prison. Imagine being stuck in prison and some guy that just murdered his whole family comes up and asks you why you're there, and you gotta tell him you were swimming with a dolphin. Don't do it. It's a bad idea. Intelligent animals, and they have to do things to entertain themselves, but they don't have TV and cell phones to do that. So they do it the old-fashioned way. They go out and play. They actually play versions of tag and hide and go seek inside the structures of some of our docks. And just like human kids, sometimes they turn and they cut that corner a little too short and hurt themselves. So that's usually what causes it. We also have 26 species of sharks in our waterways that can cause them to get scars on their fins or on their bodies. We don't have to worry about all of them. Most of our sharks are really small. But they do have to worry about the fastest shark on the planet that we have, the short fin. Now I did mention that it is illegal to swim with them. You can't do that here.
There are 1,200 dolphins in this water.
Captivity, you can actually swim with the dolphins. And one of those places I know of is actually Cozumel, Mexico.
Oh my god.
And that's exactly what this couple did on a cruise ship I was on. They jumped in the water and they started swimming around with the dolphins. dolphins started to fixate on the lady. Started to swim around in circles around them and stopped minding the commands of the trainers. Well, the dolphin trainers, they looked at the lady and they said, "Hey, are you pregnant?" And she said, "No, what are you talking about?" Well, they got back on the ship, they went down the medical and came back up with a positive pregnancy test. So it would appear with their echolocation that they can actually see more than we can, which is really cool. We are probably going to rock around due to this boat that's behind us and passing us up. So if you're standing up, make sure to hold on. The military stream dolphin, really close. Up ahead to the right, really close. Now you saw their eye. Did you notice that? They don't have to come up that high, believe it or not. But they're actually really intelligent and they're looking at you. You thought you were on a dolphin tour? They're really curious. They're looking at you. You're technically on a human tour for the dolphins. Yeah, different way to look at it. They'll come up and investigate us. But anyway, the military trained dolphins, they train them to swim in front of ships and let them know about underwater mines. They've also trained them for more nefarious reasons like patrolling waterways and making sure enemy divers don't come back up. That is government-funded assassin dolphins. That is a very real thing. They actually have one of those training facilities around New Orleans. And if you guys remember a little bitty hurricane called Katrina, well, they came back after Katrina to find their entire facility flooded out and a whole pod of highly trained assassin dolphins gone, swimming the world. Which is why you don't want to swim with them, because on average, the dolphin actually have very similar lifespans as we do as humans. They live anywhere between 50 to 60 years of age in the wild. So they're probably still alive. You may be looking at the attack assassin dolphins. So again, you don't want to swim with them because they may just try to drown you.
How do they sleep?
It's really interesting. They only shut down half of their brain. It's like they'll come up and they'll just kind of go into a pattern. They liken it to how us as humans, we kind of drive home and just kind of zone out. They liken it to that, but they shut down half their brain and then they just come up and go down. They're usually in a group and then they switch to the other side. So we're going to have to keep on moving. We still have a lot of the harbor to check out, and we are quickly running out of time. It doesn't mean we won't see any more dolphins. It just means we may not have time to stop. Cars from Galveston Island, off to the right, the Bolivar Peninsula, which is that landmass that's way up in front of us on the other side of those two ferries, where you can see that tall black and white tower off in the distance. That is Bolivar Peninsula, anywhere between 60 to 80 cars. The colors of the stripes of the ferries are all a little bit different because they represent various colors of Texas State universities, and the names of the ferries are former heads of the Department of Transportation, except for the light blue ferry is off to the right. That's our newest ferry, and it is the only ferry named after a woman location of our immigration station working area, because we were the second busiest port of immigration, second only to Ellis Island in New York. So if you're ever looking toward the central part of Texas and see a whole bunch of oddly spelled or misspelled city names, like Fredericksburg or Green, or even a famous country song, Look About Texas, that's because Germans were our number one immigrants that were received off to the left. Now we have entered into Lower Galveston Bay. The Houston Ship Channel is up in front of us. It extends up ahead slightly to the left, and about 55 miles will be in the port of Houston. And it extends off to the right, and about 6 miles or so, you'll be in the open water of the Gulf. We get about 1,600 ships that travel through the Houston Ship Channel every month. You'll see some ships on the horizon that are not busy. That area is known as the Anchorage Basin, which is basically a parking lot for large ships. The reason why they would anchor instead of tying up an available dock space is because docking is really expensive. For a ship of that size to tie up, they're going to be charged anywhere between $60,000 to $80,000 per day. So they anchor out there to save that money. Built in 1852, but they destroyed it on purpose during the Civil War. The one you're looking at now was built 20 years later in 1872. It operated as a lighthouse until the Coast Guard installed a Reading Reef buoy in 1933, which we now use today. That retired lighthouse is everywhere. The Bolivar Point Lighthouse sat empty until the 1940s, and it went up for auction. And today it's privately owned. On a secondary hull system that they call torpedo.
Battleship Texas.
So she actually sits wider in the water than she originally did during World War I. She used those brand new guns to fire on the beaches of Normandy during D-Day, the opening days of World War II, a little over 80 years ago. But after her long military career, they retired her as a museum ship, the very first U.S. military ship converted to a museum. That was done in Texas, where you can buy a ticket and climb all over her. Unfortunately, her time there wasn't that great, and they really didn't make enough money to maintain the battleship, and she actually sank. But they didn't lose it completely. She was in very shallow water, so they were able to bring her down here. They reported, though, that they were pumping out about 20,000 gallons of water per day, which is about the same amount of water as an average-sized swimming pool. The people in charge of her, they pleaded with the Texas state government to get fixed, and that's why she's down here. She is located at Gulf Copper Shipyard, getting repaired to the tune of $75 million. 15. And I believe the last time I heard, they're going to open her up as a museum around October of this year. That was the last I heard. That could change. Currently don't, but they do close sharply at 5 o'clock. And then sharply at 4:45, they're going to start to push you out and kick you out. So just make sure to give yourself plenty of time to check them out. They are sponsored by real oil companies, so they have real used oil equipment on board that you can see and even touch. And if you look in between the pontoons coming into view here in a moment, you're going to see a pipe coming out of the water. Well, toward the top of that, still below the ground floor, you'll see a blue thing. Yeah, there it is. That's called a blowout preventer. Now that piece of equipment is normally located on the bottom of the ocean floor, right where the pipe comes out. But that's the same type of device that would have failed during the BP oil spill that happened 70 miles south of the Louisiana coast back in 2010. So they pulled it up, that way it can actually be seen. Part of the United States as far north as Canada. Unfortunately, they're leasing
Warehouse for bananas.
Waiting for bananas on the beauty. So they told us quit. Ceremony they filled on out of here, and they went down to Freeport, Texas to continue their operation. So today, they're in the process using NP. They are the oldest teaching and research hospital here in the state of Texas. Originally founded in 1891. Their first class size was 23 students. Today they graduate around 3,200 students annually, and they become the largest employers on Galveston Island. They're actually one of the handful of hospitals that's allowed to study the most accommodate many different things, including cars, of course, but also other things like construction equipment, military equipment, and also farming equipment. A ship of this size can hold roughly around 6,000 cars. The dock that it's tied up to, that is our third cruise ship terminal. That building on the other side, that blue and white building, that is the world's first zero energy cruise ship terminal. It was partially funded by Royal Caribbean to bring in some of the largest cruise ships that they currently own, which happen to be some of the largest cruise ships anywhere on the planet. Now, the last time I checked, out of the top 10 largest cruise ships on the planet, Royal Caribbean owns 7 of them, and MSC owns the rest, the other 3. But ever since this dock has been open, they've been bringing in the Harmony of the Seas, which, again, the last time I checked, that number is always changing. So I always have to throw that in there. But we've been getting the Harmony of the Seas, which is the fifth largest cruise ship anywhere on the planet, and it can hold around 8,000 to 9,000 people. On off to the right, because our captain saw some pins coming out of the water, up ahead and to the right. Toward the Cyanida Key, which is a local harbor assist hub. We'll pop the brakes and keep an eye on the water, off to the right. Until then, in front of the buildings that you can see, the brown building, UTMB I mentioned, you'll see a bunch of multicolored boats, mostly blue, green, or red, and it looks like they have white and gold posts attached to them. Those are large offshore shrimpers. They'll go offshore, they catch the jumbo line, the Gulf shrimp. That season is highly regulated. And I'm seeing a fin off to the right.
Oh, there, right there, yes.
Toward the anchors of Niagara Highway. We got some fins. What do you guys think? The Selma was launched June 28, 1919 out of Mobile, Alabama. Her original job was an oil tanker, which she did for roughly a year until she hit a jetty in Mexico. And that was a 6-foot-long crack down the side of the wall. She hit a bunch of logs. Well, the crew acted quickly. They got her patched up, and they went back here to Galveston. And Selma was going around from shipyard to shipyard for around 2 years until she was named that repair and miracle. So in 1922, they decided to scuttle her or anchor on purpose. Originally, as a channel marker for the use of ship channel. This is before we had her ready reduced. She did that for around 11 years until 1933, when she retired as a channel marker. So today she's not merely an artificial reef, and she's actually one of the best places to go fishing out here in Galveston Bay. As a matter of fact, around 10 years ago, not very far from here, someone shot at a Texas state record by catching a 15-foot long, over 1,000 pounds hammerhead shark. And to give you an idea, the length of that shark, 15 feet, if you laid it across our boat sideways, it would not fit. But that was like 10 years ago, right? That's so long ago, only a couple of years ago, someone caught a 13-foot long hammerhead shark in the same location. But I want you to pay really close attention to the Selma, because she's actually made out of something very unusual. She's not made out of steel, iron, wood, aluminum, or fiberglass. She's actually made out of concrete. Same material as your whole foundation or like a city sidewalk. The reason she's made out of concrete is that while she was under construction, we were heavily involved in World War I. All the steel and iron was being rationed to build things like the Battleship Texas that we saw earlier. The civilian industry, they still needed ships, so they decided to use concrete as an acceptable replacement. As a matter of fact, the one you're looking at is the last and largest of 12 concrete ships that were built during World War I. And whenever the steel and iron rationing came back around for World War II, they built 24 more. You can find out what happened to every single one of those ships on the very real website called concreteships.org.
So how come they don't sink if it's concrete? Why doesn't it sink?
It is. It is on the bottom of Galveston Bay, but they sunk it on purpose.
Okay.
But if you're asking how concrete floats, basically it displaces the amount of water it moves out of the way weighs more than the concrete.
Okay.
And if you shake your back as well. As a matter of fact, we actually have a smaller version of those shrimp boats that you saw earlier. We have one that's called the Rock Bottom. It's actually behind the Ocean Star right now. If you can go back there and look at it. That's called the Rock Bottom because he's made out of concrete just like the ship. And he's actually comes in just about everything. It works. It's just once it is painted, it's ready to go over. How many questions we get about the film? The answer is yes, we can. However, you can tell she's in pretty rough shape. It's about once a year, almost monthly. And it's a bad by the track. It's going to run some pretty hard down below. Unless you've ever wanted to be on a human corn dog, over there, we turned around. We got again. I've been yelling at you on a microphone for like 40 minutes, but I know it doesn't want to control, so I'm going to get off. Instead, I'm going to look at Battleship Texas. Okay, if you have any questions, I'm back and enjoy the boat right back.
Pelican Island. We did, thank you.
Oh, a little baby dolphin off the crate. Look at that. If you did enjoy reasons. So when we get back to the dock, we'll have to